on a massive scale. Yeah. Has clients both for the web, for the iPhone, and there's a desktop client. There's a command line client for it as well that other people have built. Written using modern Perl techniques, which was kind of fun. So a couple little intro movies about the game. Actually, I think I should probably plug in sound.
Earth was our home for millennia, but we destroyed it. We did the only sensible thing you could do after that. We left. Our scientists pointed us in the direction of something called the Lacuna Expanse, a region of space filled with habitable planets. We traveled for more than 10,000 years. All the while, we were plotting, scheming, and backstabbing. We had learned nothing. Then one day we found our new home and immediately got to work building our new empire, until the day everything changed, when we realized we were not alone. It's easy to see why we were once on the brink of extinction. We were so busy abrading each other that we didn't make time to save our world. We had no other choice but to find a new home. It was prescient that our astronomers found the Lacuna Expanse only a year before we left. The Expanse is a great region of space with millions of inhabitable worlds. We traveled for more than 10,000 years to get there, but we had learned so little. We built vast cities on our new planet, and once we did, the hostility began again. We fought in a struggle for power, for mining rights and religion. Some chose to set up business in space to escape the bitter quarrel. Others chose to form new colonies on new worlds. The Expanse is as much our enemy as our savior. With the vastness of its property, we can spread out rather than facing our differences. Now my crew and I have set out to start our next colony, to grow our own empire in the Lacuna Expanse.
Those were a couple of the just marketing videos for the game. So, as I said, there's a variety of clients. This is what the web client looks like. You kind of just a map view of your planet, and you can scroll around and inspect your buildings and build new ones. You can go to the different buildings have different activities you can do with them. This is a shipyard, so you can build ships of various types and sizes. There's also the star map, because you're not limited to just a single planet. You colonize other planets as well and then ship between them. In this, there's only one planet that's occupied, but if you're actually playing the game, there would be other planets around you with other people on them. iPhone client, obviously similar looking, but gives you all of the power of the desktop client, but portable. Also, again, has the map of the planet, shows you all the details. You can inspect all of your buildings and upgrade them or just to see what they're doing. After we built the game, because it's based on an open API, there was a variety of utilities built for using that API in Perl, and somebody built a command line graphical client, actually, which is quite amusing. Another user built a desktop client. They wanted to have kind of more control over various things, be able to see more information at the same time, have it really optimized for someone who was kind of a power player. So they built this using Adobe Air. And it has most of the features of the desktop client. I believe it's not entirely complete because they didn't need to replicate everything. But all these clients are open source. Obviously, the JavaScript one you can't necessarily protect, but the iPhone client as well and that desktop client are open source and available for modification, etc. So I guess we'll do a quick demo, which when you log in, it has various tips to kind of help new players along, and apparently those buttons don't want to work right now, but I don't really have very much on my planet right now, but you can see, you can go around to each building and get all of the details on it. This is a production building, so there's not really much to do with it. It just gives you the information. Other buildings have a little more. I'm not building anything right now, so I can't see. There's a tab that shows up on the development ministry that lists other buildings that are under construction, but I'm not building anything right now. So mostly, you can also view more information, and it takes you to wiki with just information about each of the things. You can see all of your production information at the bottom of the screen, how all of the resources you have, how many plots are left on your planet. And then there's the star map. You can scroll around, and the star map is quite massive. So, and each of these stars will have more planets around them or other features. And it kind of goes on forever.
Is that a hex grid? Look like it's a hexadecimal. Oh, sorry, hexagon arrangement there.
Yeah, it's not entirely like it's randomized a bit, obviously. And each of these, I can't see the planets around these because I haven't probed them yet. But you send out probes, and then you can see what there is on all of these stars. Back to our planet. And we can build a variety of things. I don't have much available to me right now, but we can see that the list is quite long. I guess we can, we'll build a wheat farm. And now if we go to our development ministry, we do have a build queue. One of the features of this is Essentia is purchased by people for real money, and then they can use that to speed up various parts of the game to just make things go faster, give you a slight advantage, but not huge. And as you zoom in, you can see better detail on all of the buildings. They're all made from 3D renders.
Does it matter where you place your buildings?
No, the arrangement of the buildings doesn't matter in this game. People tend to arrange them, in patterns that are,
Useful to them.
yeah. Let's see. Various settings and about your account. Actually, I'll show one other thing, which is when you create an empire, Invalid password. Okay. You get to customize your species. Not everyone in this game is a human, so you can change. You can pick what types of things you want, what types of planets you want to be able to colonize, and you can. Each of these sliders gives you various advantages or disadvantages in different areas. There's a couple presets that are built just as easy examples to get people started. And now I'm on a different type of planet. You can see the ground is different here, and there's some features on the ground, craters, that you can destroy if you want. So, what were the goals of this game? It's meant to be a strategic simulator that's kind of open-ended. There is no particular end game with, at least there wasn't with the base game. There were some things added with servers that only existed for a limited amount of time before everything was reset. Kind of a short description. It's a lot of, there is the city building aspect. Kind of a lot of people enjoyed just doing that and not doing any of the espionage-based stuff. As I said, the species can be customized to have all the different advantages or disadvantages that fit what you want to do with it, and the worlds can be set up kind of however you want. Also, didn't want to ever force anyone to quit because there is a certain amount of competition in this game, but we didn't want anyone to ever be forced out or have to completely start over. Meant to just try to keep involved with the community, keep everyone communicating, and etc. So we just kind of wanted to go to make this basically just kind of have more depth than most web games. Most of the web games you see are relatively simple. A lot of it is like just you press the button a bunch more times, and then you go back and you press the button again. And it was meant to just be have a lot more depth than a lot of the games that you see online. So going with that, there is the technology tree is somewhat extensive. All the various buildings and that you can create, and ships and everything like that you can upgrade. And there's more that's not shown on here. The buildings change over time as you upgrade them. They get more detail, extra features. So, how is this handled on a technical level? It's meant to be, as I said, a persistent universe that never was wiped clean or started over, and everyone in the same universe, kind of. Everything is generated randomly. The pattern of the stars, somewhat obviously, there's distance involved with where they are, but random positioning, all the star names are randomly generated, everything like that, so that you can have lots. The server was meant to work with any client that wanted to interface with it. It wasn't designed for any particular client. Again, work with both clients like the browser or iPhone client that have all of the features, or other ones that are simpler. It was meant to support up to 100,000 players on each server, basically. Have some integration with various viral and social networking things like Facebook, Twitter, etc. And have a public API so that anyone could create a client for this, which was kind of a interesting choice because most games like this, there is only one client, and no one really has, even though people can often use the API themselves, they have to figure it out. It's not really supposed to be supported. It's often discouraged by the creator, but this was meant to have that from the beginning. So how is this actually done? It's a Perl.
You've lost your connection.
So it's a pure Perl server, interfaces with JSON RPC 2.0 to just support anything that can do that. The web browser or the web client is meant to work in any of the Class A browsers. Basically, it does actually support IE. That was less fun, but not that terrible actually. iPhone client written in Objective-C. The desktop client, as I said, was written with Adobe Air. So just kind of a layout of how this was, the architecture was set up. There's MySQL, stored all of the game data, interfaced to that with DBIX class. Various things on the file system for the rules, mission setup, things like that. All of the code, obviously. Config JSON used again for the missions, which are separate from the rest of the config. But Amazon S3 used to host all of the files, all of the images with for all the buildings, the planets, etc. Using SOAP Amazon S3 to interface with that to just automatically upload files and those Moose and a whole bunch of other modules used for the game code. Obviously, all projects end up using just lots of modules. JSON RPC dispatcher was used to handle the dispatching for all of the JSAPI, not JSAPI, that's a different thing, the JSON RPC. There's a Plaque PSGI server running in Starman with Nginx as the front end for that. Obviously, using CloudFront for as well, along with S3, and then various clients. This was split out across several servers, so that they all were on different machines entirely. There was a maintenance server which was separate from the database or or web server, and then there was a load balancer to run across, so you could have with multiple web server machines. Yeah. Just a few of the modules used for this. Obviously, logging, database interfaces of various varieties, date time things, and the list kind of goes on, obviously. So just a couple interesting technical tidbits from the project. Ping out or OptiPing, there's a variety of other optimizers for reducing PNG sizes, but it was really needed for this because there is many, many images, and having them as small as possible was significant savings. For this project, it ended up just testing the kind of, it initially started using SimpleDB, Amazon SimpleDB for data storage, but ended up doing kind of some performance checks, and it's rather slow, at least in terms of requests per second, especially when you compare it to other databases such as Postgres or MySQL. I'm not sure of how accurate these are now or if things have changed, but at the time, it was pretty clear that MySQL was the way to go for what we were doing with this. Using PodSimple HTML, formatting all of the API documentation automatically for the website for anyone to view. Just kind of the some of the basics from how we're using DBIX class, extend the core, has automatic inflators so we have the date time and JSON serialized columns. Just get that automatically. It does have to have, because this is a base class that everything else is inheriting from. And some of these things wanted a table to exist. So even though this table is never used, it still has to be listed there. Just to simplify defining this in the base class, there's an ID, which is just an auto increment, and it's the primary key. And then there's a bit to, it overrides so that to automatically stick in default values on everything without trying to read them back from the database, which is useful for MySQL. There's other things that it would be less useful for, I think. Starman is using Server Starter to manage it, to automatically restart it, and to allow restarting without having any downtime. It's really simple to set up. You use Server Starter on the PSGI file, tell it to use Starman, and that's about it. And then you can send the HUP signal to have it restart all of the processes. We wanted to be able to scale easily to multiple servers as was needed. So API-based hosting was a huge boon for that. Because it kind of, deploying a new server takes a long time when you're actually provisioning hardware. So having an API for that was made it much nicer. Especially adding an IP, they were rather slow at doing that, and it happens pretty much instantly for Linode or Amazon. If something got broken on the server, again, it was pretty much instant fix with the API-based stuff. A physical machine, when they had to find it, was significantly more problematic. A few of the other modules used, list util weighted choice. If you have odds other than really simple odds and you don't want to have to do it all yourself, it's just a really convenient way to get that from what odds you have, basically. There's a set of missions in the game which are basically just kind of a description for a gameplay description, along with a set of items you have to build or trade for or anything like that, and then you trade those in, or you complete the mission by trading them in and get a bunch of rewards for it. So this was something that was kind of put out to the community to create their own missions for this, to kind of keep people involved. So it does this with basically just a JSON file using config.json. There's a few different mission types, but it's a relatively simple structure. These are the items that you need to get basically for this mission, and then a list of what are the rewards, what happens when you finish. Sure.
I'm using JSON for one of my projects right now, and I have problems where, like, JSON XS, for instance, escapes integers by default, and it's really hard to get it not to.
What do you mean by escapes integers?
If I just have a data structure, value equals 50, there's single quotes around it, and so when it sends it to, say, a browser, the browser, JavaScript interprets that as a string, not an integer.
Yeah.
What modules are you using to handle?
We're not necessarily using any modules particularly to handle that, but no, it's using JSON. Well, it's using JSON, which then ends up using JSON XS if it's installed. I mean, obviously, it's relatively easy to deal with that on an individual basis because you can just force something to be interpreted as a number, basically. But have kind of, given the nature of Perl, there's no real way to do that automatically that I know of.
Use a regex.
Yeah. Well, maybe they.
You could just add 0 to the thing. Okay.
Yeah. That's one of the common things. Since we're sending JSON over the wire as JSON RPC, so basically on all the clients, they just, when something is expected to be a number, they force it into being a number. They don't expect the format to match to be a number or a string. They just force it to be.
So they just send the JSON's encapsulation. And they go.
Yeah, it's just for the individual thing. Because they're not looking. They know what all of the things in the data structure are as they're using them. So it just, for all the number things, it doesn't add 0 or whatever to force JavaScript to treat it as a number. So along with that, the files, as I said, this was kind of put out to the community. So there's a mission editor to just design this really friendly without having to muck with the data itself in the file. String random is used to generate various random strings in a lot of different formats. In this case, it's used to generate the star names because they're all randomly generated, but you still want to have them sound like word type things. It needs to be close enough to pronounceable or something that looks about right. So we create a new string random object. We set up, in this case, vowel sounds, beginning vowel sounds, and you just set all of you put in the various sets of characters, basically, and I have to have spaces because there's multiple. We want to have multiple words, and then using those character sets or those word sets, we kind of put together all of the patterns for how to combine those.
So the capital E's there and lowercase e's there are not defined by string random.
No, those are they're defined.
I've got these, and you can put them together in these ways.
Yes.
You could have a whole bunch of those and say we combine them in these ways, and you can therefore have Klingon-sounding star names and
Exactly.
Friday-sounding star names and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. I'm trusting you don't mind questions halfway through.
No, that's fine. I'll get through this soon enough. Also used just a middleware plugin to authorize browsers to do AJAX requests across domains. Normally, that's not allowed by default, but newer browsers have support for allowing the server to specify that other domains can do AJAX requests to them. And this is basically what the HTTP headers are that you set to allow that. It gets a bit more complicated in some cases, but for the simple case, it's basically that simple. And the middleware, you just configure. You say origins of star basically is any domain can make these requests. Tell it what methods are allowed and how long that information is valid for. And it gets more complicated in some cases, but for the simple case, it's pretty simple. Imagine that. There's also email stuff, which is just extremely simple sending of emails. If you don't need to have a lot of complicated control over it, it makes everything really simple. We didn't want to have to manage the S3, all of the files in it ourselves, so we just have a simple script to basically automatically do all the uploading for us. And ended up using Net Amazon S3 to do that. So you set your connection, your authorization information. You tell it what bucket you're storing in, because you can have multiple buckets on S3. In this case, we wanted it to be cached for a long time, because these are all of the static game assets that don't really ever change. And we upload a file, and we tell it the local path and where to put it, and some extra headers on it to specify. And we tell it that it needs to be publicly readable. So a few stats about the game over time of how many users we had. Starting from September of 2010 when it was launched. Started obviously low. Grew pretty quickly, up to about 3,000 total users. And then kind of went a bit downhill. But we've actually had a bit of growth recently, which is fun. So Essentia is used, is the way that this is monetized, basically. Players can buy Essentia to just improve various parts of their, get temporary improvements to various parts of their empire. So this was spent in a variety of different ways, primarily trade and construction. You can basically complete building instantly by spending Essentia, and there's trade things that allow you to trade for Essentia. And there's a bunch of other small ways that you can spend that too. Boosts, for example, just increase your production by a certain percentage across kind of universally. So, what's next? What are we doing with it now? Well, we're open sourcing the server because why not, I guess. So the code for this is going to be put up. I haven't put it up yet, but I'll be doing that later today. It's at github.com/plainblack/Lacuna server open. And this has all of the code for running the server, running the background information, creating new servers, etc. And I don't think that's necessarily been done before with a game of this type, so we'll see how it goes. I'm not quite sure what to expect, but it'll be entertaining. And that's the end. Tell your friends. So if there's any...
Yeah. When you open source the server, are you going to use a non-commercial license?
You know, that's a good question. I don't think we decided on that. I probably should think of these things, but so I will get back to you on that, I guess. I don't think we'll be using. It'll probably be a pretty standard license. I don't think there's going to be any commercial extra clauses about commercial use. But any other questions?
Just got a gameplay question.
Sure.
You said that you didn't want people being eliminated from the game.
Yeah.
So are you somehow restricting conflict between like established players who have large empires and smaller players who've just started up? Or?
Well, the first part of that is that when you initially start, people can't attack you. Mm-hmm. And once there's various things that basically open you up to attack from other players. Mm-hmm. And that is, like for the easy example is colonizing another planet. So until you basically colonize a second planet, mm-hmm. you're immune. The other part of that is you can't, there's ways you can take over somebody's planet by sending in spies and doing espionage-based things with that. But you can't ever take away somebody's last planet. Mm-hmm. They'll always be able to have at least one.
Okay.
But you can make them really unhappy.
Yeah, you can make them really unhappy.
It's a component of the game where there's happiness to let you colonize. If you get enough happiness, they can colonize.
Okay.
You can do things that cause negative happiness. Mm-hmm. And I think it's on the forums. One guy got bombed essentially by waste into oblivion to like.
Yeah. Yeah, for example, you accumulate waste.
Can you repeat the statement for the people in the video?
No, I can't. One of the components of the game is that various things you do accumulate waste, and so you have to get rid of the waste by recycling it or various other things, and that costs energy, or you can use Essentia for that. And so one of the strategies with eliminating another player, or not eliminating them, but is to basically cause lots of extra waste to be generated or to dump waste on them, and then their happiness goes down because people don't like waste. And when the happiness gets low enough, then you can like take over the planet. There, yeah, we have our own. It's not. It's just like a server with MySQL installed.
What was the URL for the GitHub?
There's nothing there right now.
Yeah, I just want to have it familiar.
Yeah.
It's going to be accepting pull requests.
We'll see how that goes. I mean, yes.
How about backdoors?
Hopefully not.
If username equals PJF,
Yeah.
Essentia plus 10,000.
I also had a question about, I guess, concurrency. I assume that you have servers running multiple crons or whatever that kind of do the same thing but from different servers.
Yeah.
What type of like locking and data exchange are you doing using like MySQL for that? Or?
The locking is handled through Memcached because it has various things for that.
How big is your team?
How big is the team? Well,
That's working on
the majority of it was written by JT. Then there was one person that wrote the web client, one person that wrote the iPhone client. I worked on both the web client and the back end. And there are there's like 2 people maintaining various parts of it right now. Did it make money? It was covering its costs for everything, but there was a kind of a substantial initial investment for the art and the time spent on it, which I'm not sure where it stands on that.
I know that with a lot of games, you'll see players join, and they will essentially leave when they run out of effectively newness. So be that content or new experiences or whatever else. And I
Yeah.
noticed that when you had the launch and it went up,
Yeah.
it came back down again. I don't know if that's the case of why players were disappearing. What are you doing to try and keep your player retention happening, or to make things new, or to?
I mean, to a certain extent, it takes a while kind of to build up something, especially when you're starting, until you figure out really how it works. It takes quite a while to build everything up. As far as what's trying to keep people interested, there was a server that was meant to, it basically had a goal of taking over these certain planets that were heavily defended. And so that was a time-limited thing. So you kind of start from scratch and build up everything and then go after that. So that was an attempt to, keep people engaged.
Did that work?
I think it went really quickly. I think it went quicker than we were expecting, actually. So.
Did you ever play Utopia on Earth 2025?
No, I have not.
What is your Facebook integration like? You get Facebook.
It does. There's a couple parts. The first thing is there's a Facebook login, just to make that easy. It's not the only option, but for people that like that, it's very convenient. It has various things that it can post to your wall about achievements that you've done and et cetera, that you can also turn off. So that's the basics of it.
Is there any special modules done to facilitate learning social network stuff?
There's Facebook Graph, I believe, is what we use for all of the communication with Facebook. Which their API is kind of goofy and changing and unpleasant and has different formats that it uses for different places, and it's kind of a pain in the ass sometimes, but
JT did a talk on that last year.
yeah.
And the slides are still available.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. There might be things you could do with Facebook, like if if they get one of their friends to sign up or something to get Essentia.
There is a facility for you have like friend codes that you can put in, but that's basically to like find the people and position them close to each other, kind of.
still be E? Is that still around?
I don't remember, honestly.
What type of data are you looking at? Like how big is, how many rows do you have? And does that become a problem? You prune it, you archive it, you trash it?
There isn't really a significant amount. I mean, players are expired after a certain amount of time. For example, if they don't sign up or sign in for a long period of time, then their account gets deleted, basically. Aside from that, and like the number of planets and the information about those planets is pretty large, but that's about the extent of it. I don't know. I don't know the actual numbers on how many rows or whatever we're using. The performance hasn't been a particular problem with just using MySQL in this case. So, any other questions? Oh, I guess that's it then. Thank you.
Play religiously. Or at least his boss used to play religiously. He's like, this game is great, it's got an API, so I never have to play it. I can write bots to play it for me.
Yeah.
They've changed the liability too, so the descriptors don't have as big an advantage.
Yeah, and there's like captions in various parts to kind of make it so at least some of the stuff you can't entirely script. You have to have some kind of security system. So there has to be either the bot has to not do that, or it would have to provide.
Or I need to have an API in Amazon Turbo where I can send that off and then get that result plugged in.
You could.
Yeah.
I mean, because the capture all comes from the as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Fastball, people script it with a
Oh, I know. Remember, his game is great.